let's go to the Jacksonville side. My guy, Jamal here, WJXT up there in Jacksonville. Jamal and I were going back and forth the last week or so, telling Jamal that Liam Coen was allergic to cats and they didn't have medicine. Bro, we had fun.
We did. Come on. Look, it had to be Liam. It had to be. Look, I guess a couple of years ago, the catchphrase for the Jaguars was, it was always the Jags. Well, it was always Liam. There was no, once Ben Johnson was gone for the Jaguars, this is what it had to be. It was one or the other. Ben went off the board. It had to be. So they had to do what they had to do. Look, allergic to cats, whatever. They'll find some medicine for him. They'll figure it out.
They got the pharmacy. They got the CVS and the Walgreens up there in Jacksonville. But yeah, I mean, before we get to the Liam thing, when Liam announced, where it was announced that Liam was staying with the Buccaneers, what was that feeling like for you and everybody up in Jacksonville, knowing like, dang, we didn't get Ben, we didn't get Liam. Are we really going to be looking at Patrick Graham and Robert Saleh? Like, what was the thought process when it looked like Liam Coen was going to stay in Tampa?
The problem is, like, this has been what it's like. With Trent Baalke, the last coaching search was similar enough to that, where it dragged on. It really felt like Doug Peterson was the constellation prize. Like, he was the first guy to interview, and then he ends up being the guy they hired. I mean, you interviewed all these people in between, people that didn't necessarily want it, and they've fought this battle for, I mean, I guess at least 3 coaching cycles now. Actually, outside of Urban Meyer, I mean, when they had Doug Marrone, the Jaguars weren't a sought-after job, and they were struggling to get people. And then now, for a different reason, because of this general manager that, for whatever reason, his reputation around the league, people don't necessarily want to work with him, and head coaches know it's hard to get a second shot. I mean, so they're not trying to set themselves up for failure. And look, we can talk about Trent's reputation, whatever it may be, but I mean, the man was a survivor. So you came in, and if it was you or him, he was going to survive. so I get it. Look, I get it. You're thinking like, man, this guy's going to get me fired. This guy's going to get me fired, and you're never going to get another shot. So when it goes off the rails like that, it was just mismanagement. And honestly, it had been a calling card of some of the stuff we've seen from this franchise in the past. I mean, you look at it, and it shouldn't have surprised me. They hadn't fulfilled the Rooney Rule, so they couldn't make Ben Johnson the offer on Monday. And the Bears played it well. I remember it was during that Lions game. The Commanders were in the fourth quarter. They had a lead. Everybody was kind of settling in that the Commanders were probably going to win this thing. And then I remember it was one of the NFL Insider guys. It pushes through my phone, and it's Eddie George going to interview for Bears head coaching job. And I'm like, Eddie George? I'm like, what is he doing? I said, has he been doing a good job at Tennessee State? Like, I knew he was there. And then I'm like, and then they offer Ben Johnson the next morning. And I said, damn it, that was the Rooney Rule. That was their Rooney Rule interview. And the Jaguars had only interviewed Robert Saleh in person, so they hadn't fulfilled it. So they couldn't even make an offer. So he was off the board, which meant you had to go get Liam Coen. You had to go. They had to take your guy. I mean, there was no way around it. And I mean, it didn't go pretty at first, right?
I want to get into that, but I want to ask you about the Rooney Rule real quick, because I had my buddy Nick Cattles on from New England. They interviewed who was
Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich.
And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, what the I mean, Byron was literally offering his services to Notre Dame, and Marcus Freeman's like, we're good. I listen, I like the spirit of the Rooney Rule, but I think, Jamal, you and I can agree, this isn't the reason why. I mean, this is not the way that you're trying to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity, because now it's almost just like, see, we did it. Like, that's not the point. That's not the point of the Rooney Rule. And I hate that. I hate watching that kind of stuff, because now you look at it like the same thing you did with your phone with Eddie George, the same thing I did with Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton. I'm like, that's why we're doing the Rooney Rule, to satisfy just things like this, so you can have these fake ass interviews just to make sure that, hey, you satisfied. That's not the point, man. That's
You're wasting people's time.
Yeah, and it's to me,
it's an insult.
It is. It's insulting. Not insulting to me. I maybe you're insulting my intelligence, but just it's like, come on, man. I was born during the day, but it wasn't yesterday. Yeah. And I understand the spirit, but you can't tell me the Rooney family that have been fighting for inclusion the entire time that they've been a part of the National Football League, they're looking at things like this, like, yeah, we should just let this go. That's got to change.
Right.
Has to change.
I don't know what the solution is, but this is not working. Teams have manipulated it at this point. I mean, you mentioned the New England Patriots. I mean, even their social media team didn't even give each guy their own graphic. They put them on the same damn graphic. You couldn't even split it into two to make them feel better. But I mean, like,
brother can't get his own graphic.
Yeah, I mean, come on, help me out here.
You're right.
But they did, and like neither one of those were serious in contention guys. And I mean, people were giving the Jaguars some grief for Patrick Graham interviewing yesterday early, and then them moving on Liam Coen late. But I mean, again, that's the rule. And there were some people, they do like Patrick Graham. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like he was completely like Shad Khan is a lot. It runs a very wide open search. If Patrick Graham would have gone in there and knocked their socks off, he 100% could have been convinced. 100%. And that was the thing the last go round. I mean, they run this exhaustive search almost to the point where you liked somebody, but you wanted to make sure you talk to everybody, and you'll end up losing out on the guys you like. It has been the process in the past. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution for the Rooney Rule is, but I do know what they're doing right now is not working, and it has to change.
I think Jay and Jamal sounds like the perfect like group. We should get together, take it to the league. You know, never know, man. We could be millionaires for this.
Hey, idea. Come on now.
All right, so take us through. Oh, and some breaking news. It looks like the Houston Texans just let go of Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator.
I saw that a minute ago. I was looking at my phone and I was like, "What is going on?" He was getting head coaching interviews last year, and then now. It's like, come on.
I know. So you look at both sides, right? Like you could do what Ben Johnson did, like, hey, it worked out. And then you look at Bobby Slowick did, was like, take any job, right? Like it's so crazy how all these offense coordinators are handling it differently. And obviously we see it here in Tampa Bay with Dave Canales and now Liam Coen. When did you start either hearing, when did you start believing that the door was back open for Liam to possibly take this job?
When they moved on from Trent on Wednesday afternoon. So Wednesday was a crazy day. Crazy. So the stuff comes out about Liam Coen opting out of the interview early. So I think I got up. I was like, all right, well, let me get on into work. We got to work on this. All right. So start knocking some stuff out. This is, whatever. And throw it out there. And then about 20 minutes after I'd written this column, ripping the franchise, Trent Baalke's unemployed. I'm like, well, this just changed things. So then they move on from Trent. Before the end of the night, I think I was kind of trying to like quietly say, I don't think people were catching on because I don't like to do the spill the tea, scoop stuff. Right. Whatever. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I don't want to do that. But Liam was the guy, and they were going to make the home run push for Liam. Was it always a long shot because you had to kind of reel him back in? Sure, but it's tough to tell a billionaire no. So, and Shad Khan ended up saying, look, you're going to have to tell me no. And that was always the plan when they moved, by that night, that they were going to make this push back at Liam Coen. And ultimately they did. And then that next day, I mean, stuff got messier. I mean, all the reports from he's in Jacksonville to Tampa Bay can't get in touch with him. He's not responding to the phone calls. I think Rick Stroud or someone in Tampa had originally said that Penn hadn't been put to paper on the contract. And I was like, if that ain't a message, I don't know what it is.
Right.
So, they couldn't get in touch with him. He's here. Oh, wait, Todd Bowles talked to him. They know he's in Jacksonville. That there was just no going back. There was no going back, and the Jaguars didn't want to go back. This was where it was headed. Shad Khan, as almost clearly as he possibly could without directly saying it, told us in his end of season press conference that he thought the Jaguars were predictable, and basically told us he wanted a young offensive play calling head coach. They had to go get that guy.
Yeah,
and that's where it came down to. And once you struck out on one, Liam Coen was the other option.
Yeah, you got that right. And yeah, I think going back, and if you read Albert Breer's article of like the hour by hour what happened with this whole thing, it's like the saga, man. It's like Days of Our, it's a brand new soap opera between the Liam Coen Buccaneer days and the Jaguar days. Do you think if Trent Baalke was fired before Ben Johnson took the job with the Bears, that he would be the coach of the Jaguars today?
That's an interesting question. And I don't know the answer to that. I do know they liked both. I know they loved Liam's first interview. So I'm not sure if they had their pick between the two where they would have gone. I think that the conversations would have been vastly different with Ben if Trent wasn't there and if they were in a little bit of a different position. So I don't know. I think they would have made a strong push for Ben.
Yeah.
And I think there would have been some people on Ben's side of it that are in his ear saying, hey, go to Jacksonville because, we want to be in Jacksonville with you. So it definitely would have been an interesting thing, but that just didn't come together.
How did the whole Baalke thing? Because last time you and I spoke, it was just like it was no secret. I mean, he was on the call with Shad Khan, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll have the conversation if a coach comes in and he doesn't like this guy." Like, it's just the candor that Shad Khan had was only candor that you have if you're a billionaire. You're like, yeah, I write the check. Like, I sign the check. That's it. Like, I don't have to worry about people being offended because at the end of the day, my name is at the bottom right corner of this check. But how did it go from, oh, well, Baalke's going to be part of this whole process, but, oh, wow, Liam Coen doesn't want any part of this. We got to make a change.
The interesting thing is Trent has always maintained that if he felt like he was the problem, he'd step aside. So I guess the way they phrased it was a parting of ways. And I there's a part of me that wonders is if somebody finally, with people openly saying, it's just him. I just don't want to work with him. I like Jacksonville. I like Trevor Lawrence, but I can't come here with him. And if you hear that enough times where it finally convinced him or convinced Shad enough to say, okay, look, dude, you're the problem. We got to do this. Look, I think Trent did some good things during his time in Jacksonville. I think he did a lot of things that they wish they could do over. There's some contracts he handed out in free agency that were awful. But ultimately it was that it just looks like these coaches didn't want to work with him. For one reason or another, he has a reputation that has made its way around the league. It is a small league, and there are things that he's done in the building here in Jacksonville that, look, ain't great. So he's not the easiest of guys to work with, and he's a guy that, again, when you're the guy, the coach gets fired and you keep surviving, right or wrong, there's a target on your back. Well, why do you keep getting the pass?
Yeah, because you're part of the decision-making process. Why are you still here? So, yeah, you're right. I look at that situation going, okay. I mean, eventually he had to start looking around, and I'm sure that word gets around of, hey, the situation, because you got the quarterback, you got an owner, and you've told us here on the podcast before, like, Shad's like, all right, what do you need? What do you need? I'll sign the check, right? So it's like you got ownership that's not gonna meddle, but he's gonna put his pen to paper and give you all these different things. You got a franchise quarterback. You have some pieces. You got a Brian Thomas Jr. It's like a lot worse scenarios out there you could have, So yeah, it makes sense that Trent Baalke was kind of the only thing that at the end people were looking at like, all right, you got to get moving. Any hesitation, any trepidation from you and it's tough to speak for everybody in Jacksonville, but with the way that Liam Coen handled his business by not being upfront because of how he was a little bit shady when it came to like not picking up the phone for 6 hours and saying, hey, Todd Bowles, I'm thinking about this. And then there was word that somebody in the Jacksonville office told somebody in the Bucs office that he's already here. So any worry about that he is a guy that has bounced to 8 different places in 8 years now, and his word may not be bond, and that could hurt him when it comes to building a staff and also being a leader of a football team?
Look, I don't think it's a thing of where like he's not trustworthy, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that are probably listening to this that at some point have called in sick to their job when they weren't actually sick. I mean, it's a similar enough thing, Hey, did I see you on TV at that Buccaneers game and you said you were at home sick? And you're like, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. But I think people have done that before, right? And this represented a step up. Well, yeah, his short stints as offensive coordinator places does give me pause, because he was just the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay for a single season. Before that, he was calling plays in Kentucky for 1 year. Then before that, he was calling plays, or not calling plays. He was the offensive coordinator for Sean McVay and the Rams for a year. Then before that, he was calling plays in Kentucky for just a year. So like these 1 year stints as offensive coordinator, sure, yeah, that is definitely a little bit of a red flag for me. But I love the fact that there was the conversations within Tampa about, look, we have to keep this guy. We love this guy, and what he did. I love the fact that he's from a football coaching family. I mean, talking about that, like, you learn things from growing up about how to lead a group from watching dad, because he was a coach to some extent. So I like those things. So no, I don't have a pause with the way it went down. Like overall, his resume has been trying to take steps up. It hasn't been like he just jumped ship for a lateral move. Like, I don't want to be on this coaching staff, so I'm going to go over here and take the same job. It's been promotions. I mean, the only one that might be seen as not a promotion was going from the Rams to Kentucky, but that was that year where Sean McVay was kind of talking about whether he should retire or not, and told all his assistants to go look for another job. And Liam Coen just said, okay, I got one, and left. And it turns out Sean stayed, but if your boss tells you, hey, look, ain't no guarantees around here, you're going to start looking too.
Yes, you're right. I'm with you 100%. And it's interesting to see how that whole thing is going to shake out, whether, that has anything to do with what happens in the 2025 season. Because I said this before. Listen, you may not like the way Liam Coen handled his business, but if they go 11-6 next year, when the AFC South, nobody's going to worry about this one bit, because at the end of the day, it's a zero-sum business. You got to win. That's what it all comes down to. Any idea of who he's going to bring? Any words of, coordinators, any other guys to fill out the coaching staff that you're hearing?
I'm still waiting for the Jaguars to send out the official announcement. I've been like on pins and needles. I came into work early this morning because we were sitting around waiting last night. I told people that morning, I was like, I think it's going to happen today. They were like, oh, you're crazy. 11 o'clock last night, it finally started. Boom, 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 boom. There it is. And then now we're sitting here. His wife's even changed her header on Twitter, and the team sending out memes of the Rizzler, but they can't send out the official announcement. I'm like, come on, man, help me out. That's what I'm waiting on. So no, I don't have the tea leaves on the staff just yet. We'll see who he ultimately decides to bring in as coordinators. I think that's important. I think he's got to nail the defensive coordinator. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to convince Patrick Graham to come on his staff as the DC, to give him a little bit of an experienced ear there. I mean, there's some other guys that are probably hanging around. Shane Waldron was on the staff with the Rams with him, was the offensive coordinator for Chicago last year and was laid off. He's a guy who Liam Coen has a relationship with going back to LA, and he's talked about their relationship previously and could be an option to be on the staff somewhere. So those are a couple of names that I'd probably be keeping an eye on to say he'd probably be trying to land them.
Jaguars haven't brought the boom yet when it comes to putting a social media post out there. One name I'm going to give you, Brian Picucci, assistant offensive line coach of the Bucs last year. Long history with Liam Coen. That could be one of the guys. He
coached him, right?
Yeah, so that could be one of those guys that goes with Liam, because the consensus around here in Tampa is that there's not going to be a big uprising because he's only here 1 year. There's not going to be a bunch of guys that goes with him, but Brian Picucci, that's a guy to keep an eye out for. Before I let you go, just your thoughts of this whole process of Liam Coen and the excitement overall there in Jacksonville. They're trying to crush my mentions today. I've gotten more tweets from guys with 112 followers today than ever before. I'm like, damn, bro. I was like, I just said I wouldn't do the same thing. I was like, hey, if I'm I can't fault the Jaguars. Like, hey, go out and get your man. But I mean, overall, man, I saw the post from, I think it was 1010XL this morning, and their whole crew was going crazy and they're dancing. Like, that's what I love about sports, man. It evokes emotions. People are pissed, people rejoice. But yeah, just speaking as a guy that's there, Jamal, like, I mean, it's got to be pretty awesome right there to get your guy.
This reinvigorated this fan base. I mean, this fan base had been struggling with the fact that this week, I mean, this has cranked it up to 100 again. I mean, the belief is, I mean, there's hope, radiating through the fan base again, because you fired Doug, but you kept Trent, which was like a letdown. And then you go through the whole thing. Oh man, who's going to want to work with Trent? And then Ben Johnson goes off the board because they're like, okay, well, maybe they'll land Ben and it'll all work out. He's off the board, and they're like, oh, man, then it's got to be Liam. And right before, the reports are rolling out, Liam's opted out, so it hits a new low of just, who's it going to be? It's going to be Robert Saleh or Patrick Graham, and I'm like, my head will explode if they try and hire and pass that off as like, we got our guy. It was never going to work. So it hit a new low, and then it immediately, like, it's this upswing of, oh, Trent's gone. Mm-hmm. Oh, they got Liam, like of complete 180 to get it back to where it's at this high. And it feels like folks are excited again. And if they can land a general manager with a solid track record from somewhere to replace Trent, I mean, not to just pillage the Tampa Bay team, but Mike Greenberg is a guy that Liam Coen.
No, you stay away from Greenberg, man. Stay away from Greenberg. We thought he was going to be with the Jets. That's his hometown team. They'll be taking him, man. You leave him.
Hey, if Mike Greenberg wanted to come up to Jacksonville, that would work.
He's taking everybody from us.
Just taking everybody, Hey, it looks like Larry, isn't Foote going up to Detroit? Isn't that where he's connected?
Yeah, him and Casey Rogers. They needed some changes on the defensive side of the ball. So I was like, all right. Well, you know what? Breaking news here. We're actually putting in a claim for Jamal St to come work here in Tampa. So you can have Liam. We're gonna have Jamal here.
It's Gasparilla.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it, man. Well, you're under contract, so we're gonna have to make a trade. So we'll send you some stuff up there because it's you're not cheap, man. We're gonna have to make sure that we take care of you to get you down here. The one and only Jamal St, WJXT up there in Jacksonville. Enjoy your weekend, my friend, and enjoy. I feel like you're the homecoming king. Well, I was homecoming king. I was the homecoming king. You're the prom king, but you got the head cheerleader. So congratulations, my friend. Be well, and thanks for your time. We'll talk soon.
For sure. Thanks for having me on.
All right.